with 5 seconds. He's going to throw it. Howard leaps. He has it. Touchdown. Carolina back from the dead to tie the game with 2 seconds to go. Snap back, spot down. The kick is cleanly away. It is good. And it's with a 54-yard field goal. And how about them Tar Heels? They do it.
Here's Kupak. Gives off to Amos. He's got it. He's Unbelievable. Unreal.
Jordan back to kick. It's blocked again. Picked up. It'll be a touchdown, Carolina, for Bracey Walker. He blocks his second punt and scores his second touchdown of the season. It's 14-13. Mr. Jordan beat Mr. Walker.
Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio, he's going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
This is the Heel Tough Blog Podcast on Spreaker.com. We welcome in from GoHeels.com. It's Pat James, one of the best guys that covers Carolina football, and we're welcoming him in here today right before the spring game to give you guys some of the latest information. So, Pat, first of all, you're back now covering pretty much almost exclusively Tar Heel football. You're dabbling in some of the other spring sports that they've got going on, but football now becomes a little bit of the focus because of basketball being off the table. So, how you doing, man? I know it's been it's kind of been all over the place here over the last couple of months, but now it's sort of time to settle in and, focus a little bit on football.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a fun time of the year right now. I mean, there's definitely, especially, this spring, a lot of excitement just around, obviously what's been going on with the football program. And it's been fun to be over there and everything. And, I've been around a little bit of baseball, a little bit more these past couple of weeks, and looking forward to being over there a little bit more down the stretch run here.
Yeah, so with the football team, though, they're coming down the stretch run of spring camp. So today was the final practice. Now they'll turn around and have the spring game in Kenan Stadium on Saturday. So with this team, I know one of the main things that a lot of people around the team have talked about is the fact that really just the spirits are totally different for this team. But we talked about it last year that the team really did seem rejuvenated for what would eventually turn out to be Larry Fedora's final year. What's different about this year's team and just the feel around it?
There definitely is. I mean, the phrase everybody tosses around when you have, your coaching staff and all that is, just that these guys are bought in. That's what's always said. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is kind of a renewed commitment, I would say, in a sense, just kind of throughout the entire program. I mean, I think just when you have a coaching change just in general, I mean, there is just an added sense of excitement. I feel like, these guys also kind of feed off the excitement that the fans are also showing currently just in the program. So it does seem like just overall there is just a renewed energy just around the entire program in general. A lot of guys like Antonio Williams, Patrice Renee, they spoke with the media today, and they just said, just the way things are going right now, and everybody is, locked in. I mean, they're really excited for Saturday for the spring game and everything.
Yeah, so one of the main storylines, I think, for the spring game really is the fact that there isn't a whole lot of depth on the defensive side of the football. That's one of the concerns that Mack Brown's been talking about throughout spring camp, and it's become more and more evident over the last couple of weeks with, of course, KJ Sales transferring and then CJ Kottman retiring due to a medical issue. So, when you look at the defensive side of the football, what is the area that right now should have the most concern and people will probably be keeping an eye on the most come Saturday?
The one that Mack Brown has most recently pointed out is, just the front seven in general. Mm-hmm. And I would say specifically just that linebacker unit. I mean, obviously right now, Jonathan Smith hasn't been practicing this spring, and they've been out without a few guys up there along the front seven. So the linebackers are definitely going to be an area to be watching for, and really just that front seven in general. Personally, I'm really excited to be watching some of these younger guys in that linebacker unit, how they do on Saturday. Guys like Matthew Flint, Kadri Jackson. Matthew Flint's a guy whose name's popped up a couple times in the past couple of days. You guys have been talking about just, his steady progression. He's a guy who impressed a lot during the fall as well when he came as a freshman this past fall. So that's one guy I'm looking for. Just that linebacker unit. Some of those guys on the defensive front. It's be interesting to see, how reps are kind of split up there and everything. I mean, a guy who I'm really curious of watching on Saturday as well is going to be Zach Gill, a guy who's kind of be thrust into the middle a little bit there. The Jason Strobridge currently injured.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And when you talk about guys like Jason Strobridge and Alan Cater, Tyrone Hopper, those guys are all out. In the secondary, there's two guys in Miles Dorn and Miles Woolfolk. Now, I know that Miles Dorn recently had surgery, so it's probably doubtful that he's going to play in the spring game. What about Miles Woolfolk? Will he be able to go in the spring game, or will we have to see maybe a guy like DJ Ford step up?
I'm not exactly sure about Miles Woolfolk's status for Saturday, but I will say that if DJ Ford is out there, I'm assuming he will be. That's the guy who I'm really curious about, just in terms of his overall development. A guy who, like a few guys on this team, has kind of, fought the injury bug during his UNC career, but he's a guy who I know a lot of guys have been impressed with so far this spring. And obviously, with his length, I mean, he's a guy who, if he can figure out how to use that length to his advantage, could be a really exciting player to watch, just in terms of his development.
Let's quickly go to the offensive side of the ball. And, the running back position seems like the most stable out of all of them. Now, Jordan Brown, of course, did leave the program last week to transfer, but that was something that I think all of us eventually expected. At least one of those guys out of those four would probably move on because of just how much depth they have there. With him leaving, is there any concern right now, or is this group really in probably the best shape of any on this entire football team?
I think that's safe to say that this position group is in the best shape. I mean, Antonio Williams and Michael Carter, what you have in those two guys is, as veterans, just in that running back room. And I mean, obviously, the guy who's been turning heads once again, as he has since he arrived last January, is Javonte Williams. I mean, he's been amazing this spring. I mean, everybody's been talking about him. And so, Antonio Williams was actually talking about him today, and just was talking about just how proud he is of Javonte, how much he's been progressing. He said, he's so excited to see what Javonte is going to be able to do once him and Michael kind of move on, which one might guess would be as early as next year for Michael as well. And then another guy, I mean, who doesn't get a whole lot of publicity, but who I think is an interesting, fourth option is British Brooks. I mean, he's a guy who, obviously not really going against the top tier guys on that defense when he's in there in practice and everything. But he's a guy who I know a lot of guys are big fans of. And he's a guy who could be a good, fourth option for this team.
Yeah, very interesting name to throw into there. I think Antoine Branch as well could be another guy that might be an interesting name to watch out for. When you look at the quarterback position, right now there's still not a whole lot of clearance, although Daz Newsome gave us something interesting a couple of weeks ago when he did say that he thought that Cade Fortin was the smartest out of the group. I don't really know how much you take away from it, but when it comes to Saturday's game, how do you think the reps are going to go? I know that Sam Howell has kind of been that guy that's looked at as the third guy in the race right now, while the other two have kind of stepped their game up, but it's still pretty early for him. Do you expect there to be really more balance, or do you expect it to be like that last scrimmage that we saw where it'll pretty much be Fortin and Reuter taking the bulk of the snaps and then Howell at the end?
I think it will be about as even as possible with the snaps with the three of them. That's just what I would assume. And even then, even though, as you said, Howell might have been kind of, I guess, the third option in the last scrimmage, it'd be kind of, really close cutting it between the three of them, even just in terms of number of reps all of them have really been receiving throughout the spring. You mentioned, Kay, Daz really talked to him up a couple weeks ago, and Jeremiah Gemmel had a lot of nice things to say about him earlier this week as well, just talking about, he throws a really good ball, and that when he misses, he misses long. He doesn't miss short, to where, balls can be picked off and things like that. And so, he's definitely been talked up a lot, but I think that, it's going to be interesting on Saturday. I think the one thing that it's going to be hard for fans not to do, and even reporters or anybody, is to kind of overreact to what happens on Saturday.
Right.
It's going to be kind of tough for everybody, I think. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I think with the quarterbacks, what I'm most interested in seeing is what they look like the first day of August camp, because there was a big difference last year with Cade, and he came in, had a pretty solid spring. But in my opinion, I thought Jace was ahead of him at the end of spring practice last year. But when fall camp resumed last fall, I thought Cade had taken huge steps just over the summer. And so I think the summer period is going to be really interesting for those three guys.
Well, the overreaction business is what makes the journalism business, so unfortunately we got to do it a little bit. Now, I don't think these are overreactions. Two guys that have really stood out on the offensive side of the ball so far in spring camp, both Corey Bell Jr., who made the transition from corner about midway through, and then Ed Montilus, the offensive lineman, who now is projected as the starting left guard. So both of those guys, should we see some significant reps out of both of those guys on Saturday?
I would imagine so. Corey Bell's a guy who I think has most been working with, the second team, I guess, putting that in air quotes. But he's a guy who's definitely been super impressive so far. As impressive as you can be, when you've been playing cornerback for, 7 years, haven't played wide receiver since middle school. But he's been super impressive. I think he's a guy who, if I am looking in terms of guys who I'm looking forward to watching on Saturday, he's definitely towards the top of the list. And then Montilus, a lot of guys have been giving him a lot of love. And he was a guy who kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit last year, coming in out of Apopka High School, as well as William Barnes. A lot of attention went to William Barnes. But Montilus, he's definitely been making a name for himself. One of those guys who's kind of taking advantage of having that fresh start with, a new coaching staff. And so I definitely am looking forward to see how he performs on Saturday. I think, it's going to be interesting to see just kind of how that offensive line in general kind of shapes up, once J.J. McCarr goes, fully healthy and everything again.
And then the last thing that I want to ask you, and we asked you this last year during spring camp, and I think it was one of those questions that was kind of interesting. Which battle do you think is not being talked about quite that much, but will be an interesting one to keep an eye on Saturday? Because everybody wants to talk about the quarterback battle, even the number 2 cornerback battle. So is there one that really maybe we're not looking at that you think could be on display on Saturday and really start to generate a little bit of buzz?
That's kind of interesting because, obviously, I think those two that you mentioned, quarterback and the number 2 cornerback spot, are definitely the ones that are receiving the most attention. It's kind of tough because, the one spot I would say, honestly, it's going to be hard, though, because Jonathan Smith isn't out there. But the guy who I'm really interested in watching is Jeremiah Gemmel. And he's a guy who I think I talked up a lot to you on this podcast back in the fall. And he's a guy who I've really been impressed by. I know the coaching staff really likes him. The one thing is that they've really been wanting from him more is be a little bit more vocal. But and he's a guy who, just kind of depending on what happens. He's been projected to be the starter at the mic so far throughout the spring with Jonathan Smith out. And I think he's a guy, if he can continue capitalizing just on these extra reps that he's been getting this spring, when Jonathan Smith's been out, and he's a guy who'd probably be, the starter there, the Mike linebacker. So I think that's the guy. It's kind of hard for me to say a specific position battle, but I think he's a guy who, if he shows enough on Saturday, could put himself in a really good, put himself in the driver's seat for that spot, entering the fall.
Well, there you go. We'll take that because there might be a position battle in the fall because of how he performed in the spring. So yeah. We'll definitely take that. That is fantastic stuff from you, Pat. And thanks for stopping by with us, man. I know it's been a little while, and I know we missed you on the podcast. So thanks for swinging by and talking to us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Look forward to doing it again here soon.
Yeah, just tell the people where they can follow you just in case they're not following you on social media already, which if you're not, you got to make sure you follow this guy because he's one of the best. Him and Lee Pace, man, tag team in the football team, they do such a great job.
Yeah, you can just follow me at PatJames24.
All right, so Pat James from GoHeels.com stopping by with us. Hey, Pat, thank you so much, man, and we'll have to talk to you down the line again, definitely during fall camp, so we can get some of the latest on all of these guys that we just talked about and get ourselves prepared for the season. Believe it or not, it really is closing in. It's only a little more than 4 months away. So for you football nuts, hang in there. So we're almost there. We're almost there, and Saturday will be a little bit of a relief for us. So, Pat, thanks again, man, and we'll talk to you down the line, buddy, okay?
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you very much.